We're going to do this a bit differently.
Which is the top?
The top is little lollipop sticking up there. It's called a tag, or they're called tagin in Hebrew, or tag. They're not mandatory, but you should put them in.
Oh, I see now.
So the question, we said a little last week with Aleph. The Aleph actually isn't in the beginning of the Torah because it's one. And, we live in a world of multiplicity, and Bet is two. So once we hit this world, it becomes a world of dualism, so to speak. And we see this all over the place. We see this in good and evil, male and female. So Bet really begins this sort of project of God's creation. What else? So inside Bereshit, we see the word bayit already. So we have Bet, and then inside Bereshit, we have the word bayit. Without going into the word Rosh is head, right? And I don't want to go too far deep in this because Chassidus has a particular take on what that means. But just the idea there is already a bayit, which is what Bet is. Bet is the letter which means bayit, house. Okay, and even kind of structured like a house. There's a doorway from the side, goes in. Now, the interesting thing also, Bet from Hebrew goes right to left, right? So you have Aleph is before Bet. Now Aleph can't enter into Bet. Once again, we have this idea of emanation. Is this idea of multiplicity? Once you live in a world that Hashem is restricted, or God has restricted Himself to a point of not almost being realized, or not being realized at all, unless we have some sort of awakening, then the idea that Aleph is going to rest here is not possible, right? That's what we see here. So on the right side, Aleph can't go in. So what happens is Bet, basically, since that's the beginning of the multiple world that we live in, this world of many different possibilities, the opening is on the left-hand side for all the other letters to come out of.
So you said, what word did you use? You said that it's the beginning of, before you said the multiplicity, you said something else, duplicity. Is it duplicity or is it pluralistic?
It's dualism.
Dualism?
Dualistic. Sorry, dualistic. We live in what begins as a dualistic world, and then obviously once it's dualistic, it becomes multiple. There's many possibilities.
But it's not pluralistic.
No.
And that stems from male and female?
Those definitely or we have wisdom and an understanding, right? We have the soul powers go with Keter, which is unrealized. I think it's reflected in what's Dot, which is knowledge. Knowledge is this world's reflection of Keter, which Keter is crown, but it really means emunah, faith. Something you have faith in, you don't actually see. It's not tangible, so we don't actually experience Keter on a real level in this world. It has to be played out into Dot, which is knowledge. I know something is real, even though I can't sense it, because I'm tapping into something that it's God-given, which is emunah, which is faith. So Bet begins that project when it ceases to be about a unity and becomes a world of multiple possibilities. And male and female is a perfect example of that, right? That's a perfect, whereas in reality, if someone's tapping to a Bet or a bayit, the Bet is synonymous with bayit, right? We understand a woman is synonymous also with Bet. Right? Well, it's a bayit. We understand a woman really is the house. The husband comes home and brings knowledge, or Aleph, into the house. He transfers Aleph into the house, which changes the way the house is. Another way to look at it is a woman is a bat, daughter. So what does the husband bring to the table? Yud. Because that's his 10 soul powers. The more he works on himself, he brings that into the relationship. She transforms herself from a daughter to a house. Or she leaves her parents' house and builds a house with him. That's Bet. That's the idea of Bet. Okay. So another reason why I didn't want to jump into a lot of sources is because, as you can see already, Bet is just really this primordial letter. It's not a. We see it all over the place. The idea of a house, Beit HaMikdash. We have Beit Sefer, right? Beit Midrash, Beit Knesset. Beit Shammai, Beit Hillel, two houses of learning. They're not even a house, right? They're a concept. So the bet is really this first point in time and experience where a concept is formed. That's really what a bet is. A bayit is a set concept. In creation, we have abstract, which is really aleph, and we have concreteness, which is bet, bayit.
So Aleph is more abstract,
Yes.
and Beit is the concrete.
Mhm.
So would you say, as I'm getting to understand these things, would you say that if that is your da'at, or however you say it, is your directed conscious mind, then it's what is it? It's Bina and what's the other one?
Chachma.
Chochma. Yeah. Forget which one is which. Chochma is the right brain, or the right. So that's another example of the dual.
That's right. That's right.
So you have your wrote it down. So you have your creative, spiritual, transcendent side, and your logical, analytical, and organized side. So it's like your Aleph and Bet. In a way,
But Aleph is more of like
if it's
speculative.
Okay. I can go with that. Yeah. But let's go a little. Let's take it a little deeper. Okay. So like, we have the word bina, right, which is understanding. Bina is understanding. Okay. And chachma is the other side. Okay, which is wisdom. Those are basic translations.
Okay.
So this is where in a lot of ways everything becomes the bayit. Okay, not one or the other. The bet. There's a beautiful Kabbalistic artist in Sfat, right? That he had to, there's a whole family, and that's the Sfirot really make this whole family up, a reflection of this beautiful family. And it says there's the mother letters and the father letters. We understand that Sefer Sfirot, Sefer Yetzirah, there's already explanation in terms of turning all the letters or the primordial letters into a family, which is basically a bayit. But if we look at the relationship between Chachma and Bina, Chachma is synonymous with male. Okay, Bina is synonymous with female. So if we go back to the analogy before, where the woman is the bot until the man brings in this yud into the relationship, and then she turns into a bayit. So then we have her. Bina is a language of boneh, is building. Bina and boneh is the same concept. I get understanding is an idea of building on my primordial wisdom, which is chachma. So men are very, idea of interjecting an idea into the household, and the woman will build that idea out into a house, or so to speak, complete the house by building it out with bina, boneh, which together is dat, is knowledge, which is the concrete revelation of Hashem's faith in Hashem. And that all starts with this kind of idea of a bayit, and we see this in halacha also in Jewish law. In what's called tuma tahara, right, pure and impurity, there's what's called a kli, beit kibul, okay, which is if somebody has a house, a thing for receiving something, which is spoon, let's say, or a dish. There's a discussion on the hinges of a door if that's a beit kibul. There's a beit kibul. That means it receives tuma, right? It loses its state of purity. Tuma is impurity. And so that's a discussion. If something doesn't have a beit kibul, it doesn't receive. And therefore it doesn't necessarily have the same rules of impurity. So it doesn't call it something else. It calls it a beit kibul because a bayit or a bet is an idea of receiving. Which is why you can have a bet that falls into the other side. Or tools that fall on the other side, vessels that fall on the other side, meaning the other side of the forces of impurity.
So like you get like vessels for honor and vessels for dishonor type of thing. You're talking about that. For set apart use and plain use kind of thing.
No, anything. A plain use a vessel can receive impurity and become impure.
Yeah.
If it has this thing called a bet kibul. Bet kibul. It's a play on words. It's a house of receiving, but it's not like this is a bet kibul. You're saying this is a spoon, a big spoon that has a big ladle. Sorry, that's what it's called. So that's a bet kibul. So we're seeing this sort of play on the concept of receiving. But if it receives the wrong thing, it turns into impurity, an impure vessel. It has to be destroyed, usually by breaking it. Or if it's metal, it can be
Pass through the fire.
passed the fire, things like that, or dunked. That's the idea.
Mm-hmm.
Good so far.
That is very interesting.
Yep.
So, there's the concept of the woman receiving that from the man, which creates life, also then plays into that whole thing of goes from pure, but can also go to impure, like in the state of clean and unclean,
Mhm.
due to natural
Yes.
human
Yes.
processes.
Yes.
That's the exact reflection of that.
Yes. Now, the physical reality is a reflection of God's wisdom.
Yeah.
We see this. It's a map, right? Our physical bodies are, a map of what God wants. And I always say that into the Western world is the whole fight, and we've talked about this I think last week with Esav and the snake and all these sort of kind of this war going on, and which is exactly why I asked in the beginning, and I said the idea about Kalandia and all these are different ideas because that really is the separation marker between whether we are going to want to live in a world which is being torn apart by anything goes, which means male-female relationships are all over the place. But I always say to everybody, like, it's pretty obvious what God wants. They structure their bodies a certain way.
Yeah.
God structured a body in a particular way, and it's a reflection of the inner wisdom. That's how He structured it. So if we're going to mess that up and change roles around and all sorts of different things, then obviously there's things going to get out of whack really, really fast. Because we're just ignoring basic, not only basic biology, but the will of God. So. There's the next part about bet. So the tefillin are called batim. You ever heard this before?
Mm-hmm.
So the tefillin of the head and the tefillin of the arm, they're both called the batim.
Batim. Can you spell it? B-A?
Batim.
Batim.
Two houses. Each one's a house.
Two houses.
Right?
Plural.
Okay, there's a house in the head and there's a house in the arm. Okay. You attach this receiving device to your head and your arm.
Not only does it receive the scroll that's inside it,
Mhm.
but it's sort of much deeper than that, which we're probably going to talk about.
Listen, we talked about the Garden of Eden, right? And we talked about Adam's role in the Garden of Eden was what? Does anybody remember?
Name the names.
Name this
Name the
again?
animals.
What else? What was in the Garden of Eden other than the tree?
Yeah.
Something.
The four rivers. Huh?
Very good.
Okay.
So 4 rivers. Did anybody learn how many pieces of parchment there are in the both really? But there's 4 parchments I'll just say it. There's 4 parchments in the head, and there's 4 parts, same parchments but written on one whole piece of parchment in the arm tefillin. Okay. Now, that is analogous to the 4 rivers.
Okay.
So we have this house on our head. I'm going to start with the head. And we have the 4 sections to it. Okay, and the idea that the 4 rivers we also learned are analogous to the 4 elements. We learned that last week.
Mhm.
Which is a reflection of God's name, which is 4 letters. Okay? So it means the 4 rivers, the 4 elements are sourced in God's embodiment, kind of reflection or emanation of this world. And if things go wrong, which they did, everything gets messed up. Obviously not God, but the pure revelation of God's will gets disrupted. And these 4 elements are all basically off kilter. So we had a mini version of this reflected in this in the tefillin, in the tefillin in the head, and also tefillin in the arm. Now they're split 4 on the top, okay, and there's a knot in the tefillin in the back, on the head, which is a daled, which is 4, which represents kingship. Daled always represents kingship. Okay. The arm, he says, a single box, not 4 boxes. The top is 4 boxes really unified into 1 box. The arm is 1 box, 1 house, with a yud, a knot of a yud. Okay. Any ideas why one has daled and one has kingdom up here and yud down here?
Is it not to do with the Sephirot being having something to do with the arm or the creative element of the image of what you're representing? If it's like Hashem and then the arm of Hashem that's supposed to rectify what's going on, what's been dismantled.
that would definitely be the head more than the arm. Really is really called the heart. It's analogous to the heart here.
Okay.
Where's the heart?
Actually, slap bang in the middle.
No, it's actually in your head.
Oh, you mean like scripturally when they speak?
No. I went off track just a second just to test everybody out. Heart's in your head, right? This is just the physical. Yeah. Okay, good. So, but that's just symbolically, talking about your emotions and your character traits. That's what this tefillin is doing here. Okay, but the one in your head. Let's start with that. Remember, daled is always a language of kingdom. When we get to daled, we'll talk about it more. But daled is always a language of kingdom, right? There's 4 kingdoms which hold back the Jewish people from the point when they get kicked out of Israel the first time, right? Always a language of kingdom. Daled is the 4 elements, which is a language of malchut, kingdom, kingship, because it's the physical, which is supposed to be a reflection of God. If it's not, it turns against it. So we're trying to do it with a head tefillin. It's just this house, this bet, is that we're trying to basically contain God's wisdom in our head. That's the idea behind it. This keter, this above time and space reality, we're trying to interact with that. The way Adam was supposed to interact with that in the Garden of Eden. The same idea. 4 rivers flow out of the Garden of Eden, and we're trying to understand and use our brain in a way which is godly and can bring down this supernal wisdom in a proper, condensed way. That's the idea behind it. Okay?
So that's how you get to the idea of this, of the tefillin being sort of an antenna to receive truth. Yeah?
Yeah, the idea that supernal truth is keter. Remember before I said keter is not attainable in this world? Because it's something that's not here. It's just above you. It's the crown is not really part of you. It's just above you. And that's what tefillin is doing. Tefillin is saying, listen, in order really to interact with God's wisdom, you have to compartmentalize it. You have to take it from the abstract and form a house around it. You have to structure it in a way which is actually not abstract anymore. So you can properly reflect it into the world. The arm, which is opposite the heart, is something different. We're doing is the opposite. We're saying this very expansive concept, and we're saying if we don't control it, we can go off in the wrong end. So we have a yud attached to it because the yud does a few different things. Yud is the most constricted letter there is. It also has 3 points to the yud, which is analogous. I think we talked about already. Chachma bina dat, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. That's what the points are in the yud, and that constricts our emotions and our desires for ungodly things, right? And rechannels them in a way which is for holiness. That's why there's a yud on that, and that's why the parchment. It's only 1 parchment there. It's 1 parchment because we've taken it already with our head and we've compartmentalized it in a way which is now no longer abstract, and it's not organized in a format we can get to, but we don't want to have it out of control. So Yud constricts it back down to 1 point, so we can actually begin to use it in a way which is useful for us.
A little bit of an aside, but what's the difference between Sephardic and Ashkenazi tefillin?
The style of the writing,
That's all it is.
and how many times you wrap around your arm. There's 7, 8. It's fine. It's not outside. And in fact, some Ashkenazim also wrap 8. I wrap 7. So this is what I was told to do. 7 is nature, and 8 is above nature. That's how that plays in. But yeah, and then Sephardim also wrap differently around the hand, right? I put a shin. Ashkenazim put a shin. So
What does Sephardic do on their head?
see if I can do it. This does it. I'll come back to you. Rami. Don't want to say the wrong thing. Good? Sure? Okay, good. So, another thing to think about, bayit is 412. The word bayit is 412. Okay. So if we break it down to constituent letters, we have 12, which is the 12 tribes of Israel. And we have Tav. Any idea what Tav is? Besides before we get there, wade in the end of this whole... Any ideas?
TUV.
Tav, yeah. The last letter. It's Gematria 400.
As in Aleph and Tav. Okay, Tav.
It's Tav is a language of completion because it's the final letter. It's 400 and it's seen as a completion act. So we have Bayit once again is a completed, if expanded properly, is a completion of what the is the Beit HaMikdash, right? We have 12 tribes. So we see that in the word also Bayit. Okay.
With the Yud in the middle.
Yes. Yeah, it was not lost on you. Yeah, it's right. The Yud in the middle. The Yud unites the whole word together. Can anybody tell me, is there such thing as an impure house?
I'd say so.
Isn't it the Tzarat?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
Any idea how that happens?
You bring
Push
it
on the rock.
inside.
Yeah. So where does the house begin then?
Here.
Where does it begin? Where is the actual expression of the house begin?
The door. Spit it.
Ken.
Tongue.
Mouth.
Okay.
So as I said before, like, if you call it, houses aren't just physical. Houses are with Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel, right? These people, their houses, their house of learning wasn't a physical house of learning. It was a concept. So concepts begin from the world of abstraction in the brain, and the bayit begins in the mouth. Right. So Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel, they existed by speaking Torah to one another, or to within their house, in their academy, which didn't exist in one place. Beit Midrash is the physical entity around an idea. But really we have, a Beit or Beit. Beit David is an idea of a house of David, but it's not a physical place. It's an idea. That starts in the mouth. So how do we make a house impure by the way we speak in the house. And the word, the walls soak in the impurity of our speech and then turn bad.
Is that why when you visit some people's homes you can immediately sense something, and then you go into somebody else's home and there's...
I mean, I can't vouch for your feeling, but I think there's something to it. No, I mean, I don't. Each one of us has our own, antennas. But I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you.
It's like an
So
intuition.
You could
Yeah.
sort of sense peace in some places where others you're like, yeah.
Well, it makes sense if you think it's a frequency that is given off.
But we don't have Sarat anymore, unfortunately, because we can't see what's really going on. It was actually a very helpful tool because you
So
see.
when did that change?
It would seem after. Well, I mean, there's definitely different opinions, right? Some people would say that that's basically was a helpful tool for the Jews when they came into Israel to the first time around with Yeshua. To not find these treasure. It's all in the. It's not in the verses themselves. It's already in the Midrash. They found the treasures in the walls because the Canaanites obviously had very not so good houses. But they moved into these houses. They took over the houses, and all of a sudden these things would show up on the. So they knocked down a wall. They'd find that's where the Canaanites were hiding their gold. So that's one Midrash. But it would seem that it ended sometime before the end of the First Temple, or at the time of the First Temple. The world really drastically changed the end of the First Temple. Right? The Beit was destroyed.
And Lashon Hara is what destroyed the
second one. That's right. Very interesting. Even though the second one was a much bigger bite, it was much less impressive in terms of what it could do and all the miracles that attached to it. So that once again, a house is not necessarily, or a bite, a bet is not necessarily a physical place. It's but an idea. Another thing about the bet is it's in the Midrashim. It talks about why did the bet get the honor of being the first letter. Right, Aleph was very angry. What are you talking about? Why didn't I get the first letter? It's a Midrash, Midrash, and God gives it to the bet right away, and the bet is given to us. He says, "Hey, listen, I'm a bracha. I start the bet is bracha. The world should have a bracha." And God says, "Okay, you get to be the first letter." And the Aleph says, "Whoa, what about me?" I'm like, I'm the Aleph. He says, "Don't worry about it. You're going to be the first letter of the Torah.
You're gonna be
The first letter of the Ten Commandments, Anochi, right?"
okay.
So it got its merit 26 generations later, and it was very happy. But another reason why God gave the bet the honor of being the first letter was that it faces upward and outward and backwards. I already said the idea of backwards being basically a stopping point for oneness that we can't actually ascertain in this world. But it also points above, which recognizes the kingdom of God. So God gave Bet the honor of being
So is that that's why it's written like that, or how do you mean when it?
There's a roof of it. The roof points up. Don't worry about the roof, and then you see the line on the left hand side. The tag is not. The tag is just a beauty. Is beautiful.
Okay, all right. So it's like that. Okay, in the other script, it's got like a slight curve to it. When you, am I right?
It just goes up.
Yeah. Well, yeah, goes up.
Mhm.
Just like the yud also goes up. Am I right?
It's
Am I wrong?
slanted.
Yeah. Here, I mean that's not. My take on it is just the roof. It's talking about the roof to the house.
Okay. All
That's
right.
what it's talking about. They're called tagim. They can be added on many different letters. In theory, you could add them on I think any letter you want, but they're supposed to be in certain letters. If you don't put them on, it doesn't make it what's called pasul, which is not being able to be used. You can still use the film doesn't have tagging on it, but you should have tagging on it. Their way of giving it what's called in Hebrew hidur, splendor. So, but you can actually put them on afterwards. They're not a integral part of the letter.
On a scroll, you could.
Usually, like if you're ready to fill in and you forget a letter and you've already passed that point, they're gone. You have to start again.
So we were at a place yesterday, and the sofer said, "I can give you a $6,000 set it to fill in, or a $3,000 set it to fill in." Is that the difference between putting these kind of things?
No, it's probably the type of parchment.
Oh.
How good the grain of the parchment is. How nice the letters are. How exacting the letters are.
What is tefillin made of? It's just not just any old little cardboard box. I mean, it's.
No, it's not cardboard box.
One way to explain. Yeah.
It's animal.
Okay.
So-
Animal hide.
Compressed to a point where it actually takes on a very hard, solid construction. There's different sizes, very small size, very large size.
And what scriptures are in the four on the head?
They're both. They're just
And both, they're just one is split up into 4 different sections, and one is
Okay.
written all on one cloth. Shema,
Yeah.
V'ahavta.
Yeah.
The 2 V'haya and Kadeshli.
Break that down for me. The last one you said.
Kadeshli. Let me try. I can't remember the number of the verse off the top of my head.
But is it all one flowing from the
No,
other?
no. It's different sections.
Oh, okay.
Different sections.
Do those have to be inspected
Huh?
ever? Like a mezuzah scroll?
stamp of
Huh?
approval.
No, I mean like in subsequent years.
Yeah, you should do. I think people do film twice in their lifetime.
Okay.
That idea. Well, usually mezuzahs are every year, every 7 years. Sorry, there is a tradition to do it every year.
But it's not
No.
normally done.
You don't have to. You don't have to. I always get nervous. Oh gosh, here we go. Have to get new ones? No, you got not. I know. Expensive.
Yeah, that's it.
That ain't cheap. So, what was I saying? Interesting enough that women are not obligated to wear tefillin. Not obligated to wear tefillin. Why do you think that is?
It's one of those time.
It is time bound, but I want to go back to the idea that we were talking about before, the difference of the duality between the dual concept of male and female in reality.
Well, some say women have an innate spiritual connection.
Mhm.
That
I don't need that
they don't need
receiver,
the
that
extra.
antenna.
That would be one way of saying it. Yeah, the other way would be saying that since she's the house already, she's the receiver already. So she's not. The idea is that the man, along with what you're saying, Ken, that he needs to be the one that actually carry this like light, and she needs to be the one that actually take that light and transform it. So she doesn't need to. She doesn't have a need to go out and actually take to draw in the light because she's the transformer.
So there's this idea that it's always talked about that the man is incomplete without a wife, but you don't often hear teaching that the woman is incomplete without a husband. What do you say about that? Is that even an idea?
Well, it certainly says there's in the beginning of section of the Shulchan Aruch, Jewish law, that says it's called Evan Ezer. It's all about marriage. It says that the obligation is on the man to find a wife. Same thing about a woman to find a man. That's Jewish law. A woman doesn't have to get married. She's looked upon as weird. It does state that. If she doesn't marry.
Shame.
But she's not obligated to get married.
Yeah, it's not her task to
Not
go
her task.
out and do it. Okay, her role. Okay.
Once again, it's the husband's job to have children, which makes it necessary to have a wife. I mean, her job is to, once again, it goes back to the creation story. Ezer Kenegdo, a helpmate opposite of him.
Where else is that word used?
Which one?
Is there?
Helper. Ozer. Zor. Help.
But in general, like where?
In the Torah?
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I can't think about it.
Is it true that
Sure,
it's
sure.
a description of Hashem towards Israel?
I have not heard that.
There's an interesting take on it that they
I would say the opposite.
Yeah.
I would say we're the helper of Hashem to draw out His light.
Ah, okay.
Remember there's a reason why Rabbi Nachman in the first story of the Lost Princess, it's called Lost Princess in his 13 parables, seems analogous that the nation of Israel is the princess that gets lost.
Mm-hmm.
It's the female, it's the Shekhinah, it's like, right? So there's what to say that Shekhinah really is us coming back. It's the collective consciousness of Am Yisrael. When that is actually, it reaches a full expression, you actually be able to sense the Shekhinah. Which is why it's the Mishkan, which is once again a house. That's what another was why in because it's so odd. It's such a the analogy. It just plays out through everything. This idea of house, us being a person being in a house for God. Where's the temple? Where's the real temple? There. And the Mishkan, the Beit HaMikdash was a kind of a. He tossed it out at Am Yisrael after the sin of the golden calf because he said, I need some sort of place for them to kind of like focus on. But it wasn't always that way. What was the place before that? This is going to get very like controversial. It's the tzaddik, right? Moshe Rabbeinu was their ability to, not that they, God forbid, prayed to him, but that he was the central kind of force for Am Yisrael. The tzaddik himself. He was like drawing in God's light for them.
What's the tzaddik?
Tzaddik is a poorly translated righteous one. I say poorly translated because we understand tzaddik in the mystical text or let's say the Hasidic text is one who is very, let's say, ingrained with God's will.
So like Moshe, we're talking
Moshe is the primordial example. Abraham, right, is the primordial example, or the prime example of the tzaddik. Does not mean the tzaddik does not mean he's a go-between. There's no such thing as that, obviously. Right? There's no in-between. But the tzaddik is the expression of God's will here. I mean, he is the tool which draws in God's will first, and hands it out to everybody in the nation.
Like Rabbi Nachman.
Rabbi Nachman is, the Rabbi is exactly. Exactly.
So is that why they often refer to the rabbis as the holy rabbi?
It's also just a nice, nice
Yeah.
thing to say. But the idea that the tzaddik is a house. We see oftentimes in Chassidus is the tomb of a tzaddik is like analogous to the Beit HaMikdash, to certain respects.
It was interesting. You said a while back that the belief is that the tzaddik doesn't decay.
Yeah.
Where did you say it was in the Tanakh that we read when I brought up that thing about when
It's not in the Tanakh.
is it not in the Tanakh? Oh, okay. Yeah, no, it's been the Brit.
There's a famous story a bunch of years ago that I believe it was the Soviets were flying in Lithuania. They were trying to knock over the Vilna Gaon's kever, and they knocked it. They got knocked open. He was like in perfect condition. This is like relayed by Lithuanians that were doing the bad work, and they couldn't understand it, and they put him back. He was sleeping. It does say that the avot and imahot, the fathers and mothers, are shochen ba'afar. They're sleeping in the dust. There is a concept of this. This
So
is
they're
not
sleeping in the dust. They're not returning to the dust.
That's
right. Decomposing.
And some goes, he goes. And Reb Natan, Reb Nassim of Breslov said that it was the most peaceful death he ever saw anybody happen. Reb Natan just went to sleep. This, and he saw it as you could see that it is,
Wow.
passed simply. It's another topic, but the idea of a house, right? Once again, is the tzaddik is a house. So whereas the Beit HaMikdash is just a physical representation for the fact that the Torah is coming into the universe. But really the tzaddik, the central tzaddik of that generation, which happened was Moshe then, was the house which was drawing in the light. Which is why the king is the one which is tasked to build the Beit HaMikdash. Because he's called the heart of the nation. He just builds that physical house for God. Questions?
Digesting.
Ken? It's usually full of questions.
Oh, it's deep fast.
It makes sense. I mean, everything we've talked about just kind of makes sense to me.
Can you talk any more about the idea of the tefillin as an antenna? I've heard more about that or read more about that before.
Mhm.
I don't know what I'm searching for, but there's like something I'm missing.
You
Maybe.
need the antenna on to get the info.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I think of try to not be too abstract. How about that?
What?
Yeah,
No
we're studying
way.
bet.
Come on,
Can't be
man.
too abstract. Aleph was last week.
Well, there is this. There's this. But bet is the first point where things become forms, right? That's right. One of the things I was debating is translating Rav Kook as a beautiful explanation of each letter, but it's very, very deep. It's poetic and very deep. So it's not, but he does talk about bet being this kind of first formation where Aleph is like, still in this kind of abstract primordial sense, and bet is not that. And I think that maybe that's where this antenna idea is coming in, where you're kind of like, you want to understand it, is that, like I said before, the idea of tefillin really is this constriction of God's light into a workable vessel. That's the idea. And we don't live in a world of let's say we shouldn't live in a world of what's called ribui or expanded light or unguarded light. Chassidus is a very popular thing. I think in Kabbalah also, where someone will get to a point where and they can't do anything because it's just burnt. It's too much light. So the idea is constantly we're not trying to escape. Also, we're not Buddhists. We're not trying to leave the world of samsara just to float into the infinite. We're supposed to actually exist in the physical universe once again to reverse the damage that was done when Adam decided to take the bait in order to let us have an opportunity. Right? We talked about that also. So the idea that the house is this kind of constricting force. The bet is this constricting force on purpose. This tool, once again, bet kibul, right? The tool. It's a tool in order to take God's light and reveal it in a proper way, not improper way, which once again goes into Jewish law. The Jewish law, the word for Jewish law is halakha, which is the numerical value. I think we said already. Maybe the first class I didn't. Is vessel, tool. Okay, so Jewish law is a house itself. Batin, ideas, concepts which are structured in a way which can take God's light and now synthesize it to the world that we live in, which is why every letter comes after the bet. It's usable. Right.
All of is silent.
We have Gimel that's walking away from bet. Okay.
Why those four passages in the Tefillin?
They're talking about the film. Shema is not, but talking about the film.
We will bind it like a sign on your hand.
I know that part. I just didn't know why those four were chosen to be in that, the binding.
And there's two types of, there's four really, but there's two major types of tefillin, Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam. Rashi is the standard, and Rabbeinu Tam is the same exact verses, but he just reverses the order. Just changes them.
Why?
This is reasons. Is it? But in fact, according to Kabbalah, that Eretz Israel, the land of Israel, is actually more suitable for Rabbeinu Tam. The redemption is necessary for Rabbeinu Tam, for people to wear Rabbeinu Tam tefillin, and so a lot of people that they'll delve into the deeper side have to. Rashi, they wear that for the mitzvah, and then they switch at the end of prayer to Rabbeinu Tam. You don't say blessing on it. Some people wear it at the same time. If they're little
I
boxes.
think I have seen that.
That's Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam. Some people say that the Rashi is Olam Hazeh, and this world, and Rabbeinu Tam is Olam Haba. One is Galut and Geula. It says, I believe it says in the Gemara, it says, there's enough room on everybody's head for two pairs, which proves people should possibly think having two pairs.
Back to the dualism.
Very much so. Very much so. Very much so. The concept that we're living in Olam Hazeh, but we should be thinking of Olam Haba. Rabbi Nachman says, live your life as you're always gazing at Olam Haba. You're always looking at everything through Olam Haba eyes. Because I thought it was only really two realities. There's either this world or the next world.
Otherwise, you're falling into the greatest deception which we discussed was
Exactly.
that there is no next world or the world beyond
That's
this. And then, therefore, you become disconnected,
Correct.
and therefore, you just lose.
You become part of the Matrix. So I had used that movie analogy. I think it actually just works out quite. You just become part of the program.
Yeah.
Which is what really is what it is when your house isn't filled up, your bite isn't filled, your bed isn't filled up with light. It's empty. It's empty. And what ends up happening is you just actually just become part of the
System.
You fill
system.
it with stuff.
Other stuff.
Other stuff.
Yeah, you fill your brain with other stuff.
Oh my goodness.
Right? Your head is filled with other stuff. Your bite is filled with other stuff. Once again, where is the house? House is in you.
Becomes an impure house.
Here.
This is also
That's all here. Because when you want to speak, where does it start? Where does bad speech start? Here. When I look at people badly, I speak badly about them. Rabbi Nachman teaches in lesson 38 in Likutei Moharan. If anyone wants to look up the English version of this, it's very powerful. When we get to pay, we'll talk more about this. But there's clearly, obviously, he talks about tefillin, and he starts off talking about tefillin. At the beginning of the lessons about tefillin, he switches to pay, which is wild. And he says, yeah, if you want to really rectify tefillin, you have to rectify your speech. What's going on there? There. Because the way you look at other people, the way he says it, the way you look at other people, you're looking at negative points in other people, you'll end up speaking badly about those people, which is why you have to look at good points in every single person. Only good points. You only look at good people's good points. You'll speak positive about them and think good about them, and actually maybe you'll make everybody work together properly, and then you'll rectify your tefillin, which is the idea of rectifying the antennae of proper synchronization between you and God.
Which goes back to the impure bite.
That's right. Which you'll see on the walls because you spoke on Lashon Hara. Right? The war isn't here. That's the.
So, at what point does it become Lashon Hara when you actually verbalize it?
Yeah, if you're thinking, your negative is negative, but you shouldn't negative look at people because you should try not to. It's very hard. It's probably the hardest thing there is because they're always the other. The other is always easier to put a negative light than a positive light, which is why in Pirkei Avot, Ethics of Our Fathers, it says you should always have an ayin tovah. That's the most powerful you can have. You can have the ayin tovah, a good eye, because if you have a good eye, you'll see good in everything. If you see good in everything, you'll be besimcha, and you'll be negative, and you'll speak nicely about people. What does the Baal Shem Tov teach? The Baal Shem Tov teaches besimcha is the same letters as makshava, thoughts. So if you want to be joyous and happy, the way you think about people and your thoughts, since the same letters, is very important because then you'll speak positively about them.
So it's actually a massive undertaking because if you look at someone and you've been taught and you fill your bait with all the right stuff, the analytical part of who you are is looking at what they're doing, and you're assessing the behavior, and you have to engage the point where you connect with this person. You've got to make it look good to the person that you're connecting to, but you've also got to control your inner self to be able to do that. And that's why. So if you keep thinking about it, eventually it's going to manifest in words or your actions, or so you kind of just have to.
Once again, I think if we flip around the word bite to the idea of vessel, I think it makes a lot more sense, right? It makes you begin to actually understand that we have physical vessels, we have mental vessels, but it's all vessels, and the world is a series of vessels. Right, the world is a series of vessels. God's emanation is hidden behind. We've talked about this before. Curtains and enclosures, but those enclosures are vessels. And they first start off as ideas, and they get transferred into letters, which gets transferred into physical kind of layers. And each one of those things, all along the way, are tools for us to contain God's light and then transfer that kind of light into the next stage. Light is just being the will, the Ratzon or will of God. Very, very far back, it's just light, it's just oneness. God wants a world which reflects what He wants, and then for that light has to be transferred in a way which is actually recognizable will. That can only be transferred in a way which is through a house, through tools, through vessels. thus the tefillin being a vessel for taking this expanded light and compartmentalizing it in a way which rectifies our inability to use the 4 elements properly, then actually rectifies it in a way that is proper.
Usable.
Good?
Very good. So we should all start reading Chofetz Chaim.
I have it.
Me too.
Mazeh.
It's a
Chofetz
daily
Chaim.
devotion.
You-
It's a daily devotional.
I have one in my
Helps.
office. You come look at it.
Chofetz Chaim took upon himself the goal of teaching Jewish law of good speech, right? Which hadn't really been done. You can find it all in their abstract, not abstract, but different parts of the Shulchan Aruch and Jewish law and Pirkei Avot actually has, but actually sizing it up and what is, breaking it down into this is this and this and this. Jewish law is they hadn't been done since before Chofetz Chaim, which goes back to this other idea of how Jewish law can actually is constantly going through these kind of realities of expansion and contraction, where you have the Gemara, which is an expanded version of the Mishnah, and then we have different the Rambam, the Torah, the Shulchan Aruch, condensing this this abstract Gemara back down into a house, which is just the Sefer, the book, so we can actually ascertain it. Then it gets expanded out again by commentaries, which then takes something like the Chofetz Chaim in terms of Lashon Hara, bad speech, to shrink that back, constrict it back down to points where we can use it. And all along the way, that's what's going on, and that's a level of rectification that's going on, because all what's going on is that's the godly will. That's what Jewish law is. The Jewish law is compartmentalized godly will, so to speak. We have this what God wants us to do, and we actually have to create vessels for it, which is, like I said, these tools, which is just Jewish law, or Torah law. That's a better way to say it.
Have you read Rabbi Pliskin's book, Guard Your Tongue?
A long time ago. It's very good. I had it in the house, yeah.
That goes a lot deeper even.
I like that because I think, not that he takes from the Chofetz Chaim, right? He just basically organized the Chofetz Chaim in a way that in our modern society we can just kind of pick up. I think it's very good. He words it in a way that's just very.
Daily Companion, those are really nice
Yes.
because it's bite
It's nice.
size. It's like for our Western minds, it's bite size. We can
Like
digest
bite
this every day,
size.
Like our daily bread.
right? Bite
Bite
size.
size.
Our
Very
daily bread.
intelligent.
Yeah.